This week on Podcast Perspectives, what is the most difficult part about making comedy podcasts?
To constantly have to battle all the big companies to overpay for talent is annoying, and I wish the market corrected itself in the comedy space.
Podcasting is going through another era of consolidation. In 2025, we've already seen Wonder Media Network get purchased by Acast and Red Seat Ventures purchased by Fox News under the Tubi umbrella. I like to think of Forever Dog Productions as the Red Seat Ventures for alt comedy. In the same way that Red Seat helps to incubate talent with help on production, marketing, and distribution, that's exactly what Forever Dog does for their clients. Joe Cilio is a co-founder and CEO of Forever Dog Productions. And just one quick disclaimer, I, Jeff Umbro, am a very small investor in Forever Dog Productions. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jeff. This is fun. I feel honored.
Talk to us about your world pre-podcast.
I started Forever Dog with two friends of mine, Alex Ramsey and Brett Bowen. I met those guys when I was in middle school and in high school. I met Brett when I was like very, very young. And even in our youth, we were making creative projects together. Even in high school, we made like feature like films, we made like art installations. Forever Dog started really in earnest when I was in college in New York as a theater troupe, as a theater company. We did tons of plays and comedy shows in New York, and we did lots of fringe festivals and traveling theater and comedy and things of that like. And it was in college or in and around New York City when we got to meet a lot of great comedic talent and a lot of people. And we did a ton of shows and plays, but we'd look out into the audience and like sometimes it'd be packed and sometimes it'd be like 20 people. And then we just sort of were like, one day we're going to need to buy a house. We're going to need to buy a house. One day it's going to have to happen. We need to think of something different besides plays. And we were like, in 2015, we were like, let's try podcasting. And we launched with a slate of 6 podcasts, 3 of which became very popular. One of which was Las Culturistas, which now is a huge program on iHeart with Bowen Yang and Matt Rogers. It was the show that we launched with. I'm very proud of. And yeah, it's been like 8 years since then.
So you guys launched with 6 shows. What did that look like? Did you just go out to people who already had podcasts, or did you develop all of these from scratch?
The slate developed because we walked around town and just asked people that we thought were insanely funny to, hey, want to do a podcast with us? And then we set it up in Alex's house and we made it for years. We'd edit all of the shows. Me and Brett and Alex recorded and edited all the shows for like 4 years. And sometimes we had 30 weekly shows. It was stupid. If you want to start your own business, Jeff, as you know, you have to have some smarts and you also have to have a lot of dumbs, because you really got to like tell yourself every day, like, it's going to work out. We got this. Because some days you're just staying up late, editing a lot of podcasts that aren't making any money, because you got to get your name out there and you got to produce a lot of content and work with people. And once we started, if you build it, they will come. Once we had a little network, people in New York, specifically at that time, were like, wait, can I have a podcast? And these people were like, they're not famous yet, but these are the funniest people in the world. And now they are famous. So we were in the right place at the right time with the right XLR microphones and a sound cloud.
But there's a difference between putting a bunch of podcasts out and running a business. Do you remember the first check that you got because of these podcasts?
No, but I do remember when we looked at the numbers for the first time on Las Culturistas and realized that's a lot. We were like, I forget, 10,000? 10,000 people listen to this? That's insane. And then it happened on another show we did with wonderful comedians Rob Hayes and Chris Daniels. And it happened on another show. We very quickly got looped in with a member of the Kids in the Hall, the famous Canadian comedy troupe, Kevin McDonald. And he was helpful to us because, again, right place at the right time, got connected to him. Older guy, didn't know how to make a podcast right. It's been all of our value to everybody in the world this whole time. Like, we know how to plug in the microphone. We were lucky to work with him because when Kevin would do a show, we got to surround ourselves with amazing guests. Like on that show, we were booking not just today's best up and coming comedians. Like on Las Culturistas, it was so exciting. We're like, whoa, Sudie Green's on. Whoa, Pat Regan's on. Oh my God, here's Aaron Jackson. And those are huge names in the comedy world then and now bigger. Well, Patty Harrison's coming on. Oh my God. And we were lucky enough to get that energy. Simultaneously, Kevin was booking Mike Myers. You know what I mean? And so we got to take pictures of ourselves next to Bowen, and then we got to take pictures of ourselves next to Mike Myers. And then if you do that in 6 month span, people will think you're smart and famous. And then people started like coming to us because we had put together a little podcasting moment and a little podcasting scene, which we got to work with that crew in New York City and that amazing group of comedians for about 3 or 4 years before everybody got famous and things changed and we all moved on with our lives.
But at what point did you look at this and say, like, I can make a career out of this?
When we launched 6 podcasts into the blue, we knew a couple things. Like, just at our core, like, this has to come out the same day every single week, hell or high water, or else we suck and it's not real. It has to have certain deliverables attached to it from a marketing perspective. And I think back then it was like what? Like a Facebook post, whatever it was. We just understood that it has to have marketing surrounding it. We understood intuitively how guests can appropriately build a program and create a fan base. And we also understood intuitively how the live experience, since we came out of the theater, how deeply impactful the live experience can be in growing any sort of community around content. With Las Culturistas specifically, we would have these blowout shows called I Don't Think So Honeys, where you'd rent something like the Bell House. Matt and Bowen had this amazing segment, I Don't Think So Honey. They still do it. It's like their famous segment. And everybody got on stage and they do a minute of I don't think so, whatever, right? It was a brilliant bit that Bowen and Matt thought of, and it was genius. And then they produced a fantastic live show where you could go one night, you saw the 50 hottest comedians in town doing the I Don't Think So Honey. And the vibes, like it was a heyday. It was like a micro heyday of New York queer and queer adjacent alt comedy. And it was a beautiful thing to be a part of. And I'll see all those guys again because these things come and go in waves and up and who's down. And I love them all. And I think they're so impressively cool and talented. People I got to work with, very cool, very lucky. I got to work with Cola Scola. I hired him to be the head writer of the rebooted National Lampoon Radio Hour. I got to work with River Ramirez and Patty Harrison on their like once in a lifetime genius comedy podcast, A Woman's Smile. Because we were dumb and hungry and in the right place at the right time and had good taste, we got to make a lot of wonderful creative projects that these days it would be a lot more difficult to justify because they were not made for monetization often. Las Culturistas chat shows, weekly programs, we understood that's a good thing. But we used to make a lot of short form narrative, high concept content. And there used to be an audience for that. And also 10 and 20 Kers a week used to be able to make money. And now if you're not rolling up with the 50, 60, 70, you won't even get a second look. It was a different time, Jeff. You should have been there. It was fun. You were there. We went to breakfast 8 years ago. Yeah, those were the dog days, man. I remember one day Kevin was like, "I'm famous, or the guest is Mike Myers. Like, can you guys get some fucking advertisers on my program?" And we're like, "Oh my god, yes! Oh my god, oh my god!" So I think we had a call with like a aggregate, or not an aggregator, affiliate advertiser, and we were like, "Okay, we got to do affiliate advertising." Like, AKA, like we did not know what we were doing, had no idea how to sell ads appropriately. It wasn't really until I don't know. We know what we did. We hired a CEO at a certain point in our youth. And this guy, Gary Reisman, he came in from cable and from analytics at Fox and from sales in cable for, his whole entire career. And he taught us the game. He brought in a head salesperson from Viacom, Karen Bresner. She was amazing. We 10x'd our sales in 1 year. Because Karen and Gary are super smart and we all are super hardworking, but really because there was no sales infrastructure. There was a ton of empty inventory, and like Karen knew to call BetterHelp. I remember like Karen calls me one day. She's like, "Yeah, BetterHelp just bought like the whole network for a year." I was like, "You're kidding!" Like, no, they didn't. Gary developed that sales infrastructure. Karen went on to do her thing. We brought in our CRO, Lynn Krzelski. We ran in-house sales with Lynn and Gary for about 3 years, and I learned so much from them. And I'm really grateful that we took our lumps and did the in-house sales team thing early. We really got to meet everybody and know the landscape and know what buyers buy and understand how to package and sell this media content. And I'm lucky that we got in it so young because I feel like we instantly wanted to start helping pushing ad sales forward and helping our brand partners, specifically our agency partners, help like so many of us in the space do, talk to brands about the beauty of podcasting, why it's valuable, all those things.
And that brings us to today, and you guys have done a lot of things. I would love for you to spend a minute just kind of like walking the listener through what is Forever Dog today?
So about 3.5 years ago, we took over the company again amicably. We love our wonderful advisors, our former CEOs and CROs, but Alex and Brett and I took over the company about 3 years ago. Some of the things that we immediately did was outsource our sales because we didn't have the scale appropriate to continue to support that in-house staff. And we'll get back there. And I have a very forward thinking approach to the sales market. And I'm really excited about our current sales partners. I'm excited about how sales grows and develops. But for whatever, at that point in time, we made that choice to outsource our sales. We cut back on a lot of programs that weren't working. We just we just had to grow up and understand they do not want your fucking 15Kers anymore. Like you have to make 50Kers. And, if you want to be a real big podcast network, you got to grow and scale your shows, provide value to the agencies and the buyers and the talent. Like Forever Dog creates ambitious video podcasts. We have two networks currently. We have Forever Dog, that is our namesake comedy imprint. We have about 9 or 10 shows on Forever Dog. And then we have a second network called Moguls of Media. And that network is dedicated specifically to the drag scene. And that is a massive network for us as well. So we produce shows at those two networks. They're all video shows. We distribute them as social media. We are front to back. We do everything for our programs. We develop programs. We build sets for our programs. We shoot our programs. We have a podcast version of our programs. It's totally different than not totally, but it's a different thing than our YouTube program, which is different than our social media output. Every single show is cared for appropriately. We are not an aggregator. We are a production company for new media, and we know how to take talent or franchises or programs and either adapt them for or produce and develop them for new media distribution in its fullest context and not leaving any meat on the bone. We aren't just a sales aggregator. I'm not trying to onboard 100 shows this year. I'm trying to onboard an appropriate amount of shows that we can actually take in-house, have our resources dedicated towards these programs, and effectively and transparently grow with talent over time. That is our goal currently. And guess what? I love it, Jeff, because that's what a lot of people want. I think a lot of creators want. I would never begrudge anybody the check. When I lose all of my bids to Spotify because they paid 50K fuck you dollars more, like, okay, like that's life, right? But we are always this close, and sometimes we win because some creators understand the value in having an entire production team of experts that have been doing it for a decade come to your program and actually care about it in a real development sense. Because Spotify, God bless them, they're going to give you the money, and that's good enough sometimes. But that's going to be that, and then they're going not really to dedicate resources necessarily to growing your program. I know they have. I mean, that's just facts. Duh. Sorry, they're not going to build you a set unless you're the most famous person on the network. They're not going to think of a YouTube strategy. They aren't really going to help you grow. And when you don't grow, they're going to give you a shittier deal next time when it comes time for renewals.
Walk me through though how you do that, why somebody like Spotify can't. What is the secret sauce that you guys put in? And also, how does it look? Like who owns what?
We just are investing in infrastructure development, AKA personnel. I think that every big company, everybody, it's not bad business to gut Sirius XM and only keep the highest profiting shows and get rid of all your production line items and just have a bunch of pure profit. Like, I get it from a balance sheet P&L. I run Sirius XM perspective, but I don't run Sirius XM, and that isn't what I am interested in. I think that quality will always get a portion of market share. And I believe that quality comes from the people that work on the program. So you asked about how we allocate our resources. All of our shows have producers, probably a post-production manager, and some shows that team might expand to 6 people because it's a huge show. Sometimes it might stay localized with those 2 people. But whether a program is 2 people staffed or 10 people staffed, every single show at Forever Dog gets the same resources. We have an executive producer of YouTube who just works with everybody on their YouTube shows. Our operations teams will specially work with you on your show's ad development and branding around your show. Graphic designers, we have an art director on staff. We have all of these amazing resources that are just like line items that other production companies aren't currently investing in. And I think being able to have these resources on retainer is enticing to a creator. You can come to our studio, have our professional engineers set it up. We can art direct it, build it a set, booking support, all of these things that agents pretend you don't have to pay for and aren't important, or they are that is the secret sauce. And adding a little bit to the budget and is not a crime. And I'm leaning into the camera to talk to my agent friends. I don't want you to nickel and dime me on production costs anymore. I want you to engage with me in good faith and let's grow talents. Let's make them famous together.
How do you structure that? Just because I mean, I'm curious, but also, like, I'm sure our listeners are. Big famous comedian comes to you, they want a show, you charge them 5 or 6 grand a month, they get a weekly, very well-produced podcast with video, and then you sell ads and you split the revenue on the ads.
That's it. I'm talking about when it comes to that moment when we discuss costs for the show. I find that more often than not, probably because of previous relationships that agents and creators have had with podcast companies, they balk at all of your production costs. So I'm over here trying to spread the good word that, hey, you know what? If we take a little bit of money and invest in the right resources to develop this property, I think that we could 2x, 3x, 4x this program and expand its revenue streams. And agents will hear that, and their fear is that, whatever. There's been a bunch of whatever. It's tough out there. We're new. It's not like everybody's worked with me. It takes convincing, and I just want to earn people's trust and let them know, like, hey, when I say I want to spend 5 or 6K on production costs for this show a month, that's because I want this show to yield $40,000 of money a month.
That is a very low amount for, like,
I
the kind of
know.
services that you're providing.
I know that's their job and how they're trained, but it's just so funny to be like the flabbergasted looks from our agent friends. It's like, guys, stop. You're being silly. Enough.
If their talent was gonna go and hire a bunch of freelancers to do this work, they could not get it for double
Well,
that
that's the thing.
price.
They're always like, oh, well, we could just hire an editor for 3K. That's completely different than having an entire team of new media professionals dedicated 40 hours plus a week to making your talent famous. That's just a completely different thing.
How are you protecting your investment in that talent? Is there any piece of this that you own, like the RSS feed or any of the IP or anything?
We're trying currently to blend acquisition and scaling with in house development. We always, because we like development and because we believe in our development process and that it can yield creative and financial results, sometimes we make shows in house and then hire talent at like a flat fee rate to host our program. That's a great way to make talent feel comfortable so they're making money out of the gate. And it's also a way for you to control costs, period. Then there's like back end rev sharing, all that normal stuff. Sometimes we'll bring in a show and we won't get our way. We won't be able to participate in every revenue stream. Perhaps the show has a really developed Patreon. That's people's rent, that's people's livelihood. They built that platform. I understand why people can get kind of hands off my Patreon. Like, all good, all good. No problem. I from the bottom of my heart, right? But sometimes we work with somebody in just limited scopes and capacities. Maybe we will be your sales arm, which we're really good at, and we have a lot of wonderful people working really hard on that. And sometimes we'll be in a much more expansive relationship. So it's a blend. Talent retention is actually having a relationship with your talent and actually making them part of your like creative and financial team. In fact, they're the most important member of that team. I make an effort, and we all do at Forever Dog, to make sure talent understands why we make choices. Why do we want program to be distributed this way? Why are we changing it this way? Why are you going dark for 3 weeks? Why do we need to remake the logo? Why are we cutting your beautiful, well watched show in half and distributing it as two parts on YouTube when it was already getting 100K the way it was before? Because I'm not satisfied with 100K. This could be 500K. We have to continually play the game.
I know that you have the revenue model already, and you're also able to plug that into like the quality that you're seeking. So walk me through what that revenue model looks like beyond just the idea of like an audio podcast ad.
So basically, for every single show, there's like 5 obvious first thought revenue streams we could approach. There's podcasting, audio, there's video, there's social media, there's merchandise, and there's live shows. And then, of course, there's also like the amorphous 6th category of branded integration.
What about premium content? Is that in there?
Oh, that's like the most important one. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, Jeff's an investor. He was like, "Oh fuck, they got rid of premium." No, and sorry. Of course, premium would be like an absolute pillar of that revenue blend, and we love premium because it's just great recurring revenue. That's nice. But what I really love about premium is like that's where the sickos are. Like they love the show. You know, they want the weird content, and I love those Patreon fans. God bless them. So you have to be able to invest in these different revenue streams to be able to get the most out of them. And we're continuing to invest in developing our merchandise and our live show sort of infrastructure across the board, even though we do those things quite a bit. Yeah, those are the different ways that we currently make money, but there's so many more different ways coming down the pipeline, like licensing. Jeff, when Netflix gave Miss Rachel, the popular child YouTuber, a Netflix show, they didn't give her a Netflix show. They licensed her YouTube content. Like there's not a glossy Miss Rachel show coming, or maybe that's part of it. But you know what the biggest part of the deal is distributing her already made YouTube content on the Netflix platform because YouTube is not quite eating Netflix's lunch per se today, but Netflix knows the writing on the wall. Inside the Netflix platform, you better have your own YouTube.
There's two things that just happened this week. We're recording this on Valentine's Day, February 14th, for anybody listening. This past week, Business Insider came out with an article that said that Netflix was part of the conversation of trying to get Call Her Daddy from Alice Cooper.
Great idea, Netflix. Yeah.
And the second thing that is pretty big is that Fox News, or specifically Tubi, just bought Red Seat Ventures, which is the company behind Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, who, if you're paying attention, are distributing all their video products on X.
Red Seat Ventures nailed it. They're like, we'll develop an entire media ecosystem in new media, and then one day one of these giant vultures will come and buy us up for $1 trillion. That's genius. That is kind of what I want to do. I want to create a new media empire company, like not just an aggregator. I don't want 100 pages full of bots. I want to create millions of unique listeners that are engaged in our program in multiple revenue streams that when we amass and scale the correct amount of them, we're able to create other projects and experiences for our fans, whether that's in television, film, live experiences. When it comes time for Forever Dog to make a feature film, if that's a piece of content we decide to produce, then we will be able to market it to our gigantic, engaged, well considered, and specifically developed fan base of millions and millions of uniques. And then we can save a lot of money on marketing and we'll be able to speak directly to the people we want to speak to in an incredibly personal way. It's going to be so powerful. And that's what the Red Seat ghouls thought of so brilliantly.
Well, how is that different though than like all things comedy, for example? I love this idea. I very strongly believe in it. You know this. But I'm also curious where you guys will succeed where other people have maybe not.
Bill Burr is a major participant in this is either his company or he's a owner.
He's a partial owner with Alexis Madrigal.
Bill Burr might just like be very happy with it the way that it is. It might be monetizing really appropriately and effectively on podcasting, and it might be very helpful from a content distribution and sales standpoint in other mediums. And that might just be what he wants. Maybe he doesn't have like the Reese Witherspoon scale to $1 billion plan. Like he's not going to have pans with Bill Burr's face on them in the Target, even though I would buy one, Bill, as a comp. He's Bill Burr doing that for Bill Burr stuff, and it's a great model. I would be, and lots of celebrities and talent and famous people are going to have their own everything from skincare line to production company and label, and a lot of people have stuff like that. The difference at Forever Dog is just the scale. I'm not like I want 10 Bill Burrs here. I want to build 10 all things comedies here.
How do you monetize YouTube? We all know like the YouTube partner program, you can do baked in ads, but like how can you do that better?
I'm like the YouTube podcast guy, so I should have a fancy ass answer, but I'm also like a very current producer and seller of the stuff. So I'll just tell you like the lay of the land. So far, our buyers are incredibly responsive to the simulcast product, which is great. What I mean by that is we distribute essentially one-to-one content on YouTube and podcasts. We bundle those impressions and we sell them at the same CPM. And hey, that's great news for me because that just, doubles or increases our, the scale of the buy.
When you're selling the YouTube, because it's a lot less predictable in terms of the scale, are you just taking the average viewership of the last 10 videos or something?
We are, but we're really, really interested in making sure that our buyers can get as much value out of the YouTube analytics as possible. So what we're doing in regards to that is in the past, maybe we've had like our network has a mom YouTube page. And behind the scenes, we're currently over the course of this quarter, migrating all of those shows to their own YouTube pages. That comes with a very regimented communication thing with our fan base. And it's going to take a few weeks to migrate them over very appropriately and to message it clearly and do it appropriately. But when this process is done and over, we will have all of our shows on their own YouTube pages. Then we will look at the content. Are we appropriately distributing this content to be optimized for YouTube distribution? AKA, what are our watch through times? When do people, what do they skip ahead to? When do they jump out? YouTube is the answer to all of podcasting people's prayers because I don't know about y'all, but I don't know how much your Megaphone backend is helping you communicate the value of your shows to your clients because they don't care that 3% of them is in Germany and they don't care about the most boring basic stuff. YouTube gives podcasters the power of Google Analytics. I can like zoom in on my fans' houses. You know what I mean? Like I know everything about these people. No, but for real, one of the reasons we're moving it is to play the algorithm game appropriately, but also so that we can report very efficiently and effectively to our buyers. Like right now, to pull one show's data can be difficult because it's all mixed up. So I want to just sell them like a page. That YouTube page per week averages 100,000 watches. And this is how we're going to bake your ads into our content, even if it's not one-to-one. I think the great thing about simulcast right now is they get it in the sense that, oh, it's a video version of the podcast, and that's the podcast. It's the same. The ads go in the same. Where I want to take them is like, but you know what's really going to help you reach our audience? This content can't be one-to-one all the time. Sometimes we need to take this hour and a half long podcast and make it a 20-minute YouTube video. And you have to, or I hope that our brand partners will trust us that that's the right move and that we will work with them. Basically, now when it comes to like an inventory management and how we sell our programming, not to get too deep into it, but by the end of the year, our offering is going to look a little different than it does right now. Right now, we get RFPs in and we have inventory slots and we do a podcast first sort of approach. But by the end of the year, we're going to be like, we're a video podcast company. And then we're going to have to look at the lay of the land and say, all right, we got 4 inventory slots. The first 2 are baked in. You can buy them. And the last 2 are just going to be DI for whatever program we're in, whether that's the Span one or the YouTube one or, whatever. And that's how we're going to redo our inventory. What if our sales arm's watching this like, oh, fuck, Joe's going to change everything soon?
You mentioned that you'd love to have a bunch of podcast networks under your umbrella. You have 2 currently, Forever Dog and Mom. At one point, you guys were on your way to launching a 3rd, and that didn't work out. What does this look like in the future? Will there be 10 different imprints that you're putting out?
Imprints has a interesting and spotty track record in the business. Remember when this might be just like so inside baseball, it's like even too inside baseball for podcast perspectives. I don't know. You remember when Stitcher bought or like Scripps bought Stitcher and then they were going to turn it all into like hubs for different content categories and
Yes, yes,
break
I
it
do.
out. Like
Yeah.
didn't happen, but like not the worst idea of all time. And then here at Forever Dog, like we have 2 networks, and we did that very deliberately when we took over the company again.
Sorry, just to pause you, but in my opinion on that, the reason they did that was so that they could target the same kind of listener, but now people can do that dynamically. And, it's kinda garbage how the end result of it, but, like, that's the reason I think people have moved away from that.
So based off that, we decided to split Forever Dog in 2 and take all of our drag content and put it under Mom and all of our comedy content under Forever Dog and start making 2 distinct brands for 2 distinctive groups of consumer. And that did help increase sales. And on the buy side, that was helpful. And on the marketing side, and it also exploded the content. Like clarity is good. So when you ask, will I continue to make networks and stuff? I think that networks as like I don't have any plans right now to start a new network. Like I have plans to expand Forever Dog and Mom this year and next year, but like we did try to start a 3rd brand like 2 years ago called Eve. Long story short there was it's like an interesting like failure that I'm really glad we went through. Can I talk about this for 2 seconds? Like I never talked about this.
Please.
Our sales team was like, who buys a lot of stuff is young women, right? Like that's true, right? Beauty products is a humongous category. Like young women, a growth area in this space. Like, and all of our buys for all of our female skewing shows were like 5 inventory slots filled a week, and then like the guy shows, not Joe Rogan. It's like who cares, right? So like a guy show at like 70K, it's like I'm just gonna go buy more Rogan.
We went through the exact same thing, by the way. We used to represent a female reality television network, and exactly identical story. We would sell dozens of ads every month for that network, and everything else, it was like we'd get the scraps.
So it was just like gangbusters on that side of the sales aisle. And we had lots of younger talent and plenty of female skewing shows. And, who doesn't want a piece of like the influencer economy? And this is the way it's going. So we built a brand. Like we built like a style guide and it was geared towards Gen Z women and it had like a point of view. And we launched it with 3 programs. We had a production unit in the UK. We had production units in LA. We had photo shoots and videos and all this stuff.
Sounds very expensive.
Ding, ding, ding. Because we thought like, because we did it back when we were kids, we're like, oh, you just start a podcast network and you work really hard and then you have a company. But man, the world was so different when we started Forever Dog 8 years ago, completely different than when we tried to eat 2.5 years ago. It was like a totally different thing. And we needed so much money and so much runway to grow these programs. And we didn't understand YouTube like we understand it now. And it was just, we bit off more than we could chew and learned a lot in the process, but sincerely did learn a lot. And it was a good experience and is a good idea that we should do again one day when we have the appropriate resources and means, because I think that that's a cool idea. Like, I think that like we always talk about it. We don't have any true crime, right? But let's just talk like what does a Forever Dog true crime network feel like and look like? And what are the differentiators about that? Or what does the horror imprint look like at Forever Dog Productions? And like, how do we work in that space? We are going to eventually want to expand beyond sort of comedy, which is the broadest, amorphous category of all time. But there's no rush. I want to build appropriately, piece by piece, show by show, and really develop a very valuable listener base. And we will follow the bouncing ball. Like when drag, we had the show Race Chaser come on to Forever Dog. It was instantly our biggest show of all time. And I wanted to retain that talent, Jeff. So I had to come to them and say, I'm going to build you a network. This works. This works. This works today. This is a good idea. I said, guys, I want to build you a network. You're going to make X% of the shows. This is how we're going to run the financials. I want you to EP it and market it and speak to your community about these kinds of programs. And it's been a partnership from heaven. They've upheld their end of the bargain, and I'm happy to report that we held up our end of the bargain. And Mom is a serious competitor and problem for WoW, RuPaul's company. And I really like where we are in that space. And it's a fun space to be competitive in because from the outside, it's like, surely the drag queens networks wouldn't want to have a big fight. I'm sure it's all love. Of course, we want to have a big fight. I love it. I love the competition, and they love it too.
What's coming next? What's in the future?
This video shift is undergoing, and it's not like taken lightly. Like I'm not like on Monday, I need you guys to have YouTube shows. It's like a serious development process of like considering like what are the assets, what's the asset language that we're going to establish for this program. Let's develop the templates for that. How are we going to build that out technically? So the great thing at Forever Dog right now is we've been just cranking, turning up our video operation. We invested a ton in our resources, like our technical resources, our cameras, our lights. Our shows look so good right now, folks. I don't mean to brag. I'm just really happy and proud of our amazing team. Like, it's tough to take a podcast team and be like, just kidding. We're all YouTube creators. Didn't you hear? And everyone's like, I don't think we are, dude. It's like, no, we are. But they've adapted beautifully. Our stuff looks great. So I'm really proud of like the content's looking nicer and crisper. The workflow on the back end is getting refined. I mean, I want efficiencies because I want to scale. I love the way we distribute and think about things here. And I just need to increase the efficiency on the back end, which we're successfully doing. I think like every new YouTube show it has to be considered and thought about. And then what I want to do is look at specific revenue streams like live and merchandise and make sure we are like increasing our totals pretty significantly in those areas this year. And I want to be a leader in video podcasting, and I want to be a person or a sounding board or somebody who helps us all think about how are we going to work together to get brands in the mix on these video podcasts authentic. Like it's all going to work out, brands. Like I can't wait until we're all on the same page because we like what value has podcasting been to the advertisers? Like authenticity, like connection to fans, host-read advertising. We're going to continue that tradition in video podcasting. Like brands are going to feel in and of the communities they're going to be taken care of at Forever Dog, and they're going to be very, very excited to walk into their quarterly meetings and show their teams how beautiful our products look next to their products on YouTube with a video, not just audio. So I'm really excited about the future, Jeff, and I just can't wait to work with more great creators and just keep kind of discovering like how do you grow a show, right? The eternal question, and just keep trying to solve that question.
That makes me really happy, man. Congratulations on all the success and the future success.
Thank you. Likewise, Jeff. You can find all our shows at foreverdogpodcast.com, and you can find Mom at everybodysaymom.com.
Well, thanks again, Joe.
Thanks, Jeff, and thank you, Chris. Thanks, guys.
Thank you all for joining us on the show this week. For more podcast-related news, info, and takes, you can follow me on LinkedIn at Jeff Umbro. Podcast Perspectives is a production of the Podglomerate. If you're looking for help producing, marketing, or monetizing your podcast, you can find us at podglomerate.com, shoot us an email at listen@thepodglomerate.com, or follow us on all socials at Podglomerate Pods. This episode was produced by Chris Boniello and myself, Jeff Umbro. This episode was edited and mixed by Jose Roman. And thank you to our marketing team, Joni Deutsch, Madison Richards, Morgan Swift, Annabella Penna, and Perry Gross, and a special thank you to Dan Christo. Thank you all for listening, and I'll catch you all in a few weeks.